Hello, everyone. Welcome to Module 2 of the four-part training series on supporting ethnocultural and multilingual families. This training is designed by a community organization in Edmonton, Multicultural Health Brokers, MCHB, and the University of Alberta's Multilingual Families Lab in partnership with PolicyWise. My name is Nahid Mukhi, and I am an early childhood development consultant at Multicultural Health Brokers and a PhD student at the University of Toronto. And together with my colleague, Dr. Andrea McLeod, we will be your facilitators for this series. We will share some of our own lived experiences and promising strategies on promoting multilingualism and intercultural practices in the early learning and childcare environments, based on our own research and community work. We will also share knowledge that we have learned and gained from community partners that serve our ethnocultural and multilingual families. As mentioned in Module 1, these modules are aimed at educators and program leaders eager to enhance their understanding of intercultural practices and to better support ethnocultural children and families in their care. The first 3 sessions are entirely self-directed and only 30 minutes long, giving you the ease to fit them into your schedule and learn at your own pace. The concepts you will learn are directly linked to skills needed to enhance your intercultural practices, which will help you integrate into your toolkits. Finally, we are hosting a live vote module between February and March 2025. It will be available to anyone who has completed the first 3 modules and is interested in collaborating with fellow educators to strategize how to bring this learning to your program. In this module, educators and program leaders will build on what they have learned in the first module and develop skills to better support the diverse families at their programs. In this module, we will explore multilingual and intercultural practices that contribute to culturally responsive childcare and its vital role in the child's overall development. We will talk about the concept of multilingualism and plurilingualism to develop the importance of recognizing and encouraging children's home languages. Multilingual practices contribute to culturally responsive care. In addition, we will also discuss ways to promote children's home cultures and celebrate the strengths they bring to enrich early learning and childcare. Lastly, all these ideas and theories will be complemented with practical and low-cost strategies to nurture positive, trusting relationships and connections with families and children, and create a culturally responsive early learning program. We hope the second module enhances your skills and makes a meaningful impact in your program.
Hi again. I'm Andrea McLeod. I'm a researcher at the University of Alberta. I'm also a bilingual speaker who grew up speaking both English and French. I've brought this curiosity and this search to better understand how we grow up with 2 languages, but also what are the different paths to growing up and continuing to use our 2 languages. How can we support families in that process? How can we support communities? And how can we help our organizations, our institutions better understand the value and the importance of the 2 languages for families and for communities? Through this work, I've had the opportunity to work in really deep ways with communities. So using community participatory methods, which essentially means that when I'm doing research alongside and informed by the community's questions, their needs, and really hope to bring back information that they've shared with us so that it can also be shared within the communities that did the research with us. So these conversations are ones that we've had with community members, with organizations that serve communities, and with parents. So in the first module, we talked about the importance of considering the child and their family. We also spoke about the roles of barriers that exist within the broader society. We know that a child's development is influenced by their own genetics and their environment. When we think about the environment, we can understand this as a set of systems, a little bit like a nest where we have the child surrounded by their family, surrounded by the early learning and childcare setting, surrounded by their community, neighborhood, and then the broader society. These systems influence the child and their family. So the child is developing and is driven by their own, who they are as a child and as an individual, but they are influenced by their family and these systems around them. Children also have the opportunity to influence their family and the systems around them. So there's definitely a bidirectionality, or things move in both ways. And we know that both the child and the family have that strong potential and strong knowledge that can be tapped into to contribute to our systems and to our broader society. So a core component of culturally responsive care is valuing the knowledge that families have, including their languages. We call this cultural wealth. And in the Sparks Guide, cultural wealth is defined as the wide array of knowledges, skills, abilities, and experiences that are learned and shared by a group of people. These are unique features of culture that are worthy of celebration, including traditions, art, languages, music, and stories. There is this myth that a newcomer and ethnocultural communities need, above all else, financial support to acculturate and settle. But it's important to acknowledge that our families bring with them a great deal of knowledge. This requires us to really begin to see newcomer communities and ethnocultural individuals as those who bring wealth rather than seeing them as economic burdens in our context. When we are successful at tapping into and better understanding what we can call cultural wealth, we not only learn a great deal, but we also continue to work towards a more inclusive intercultural system that works for everyone. By acknowledging that both the broader society has knowledge and wealth to bring to the table, but so do the families that we work with, we really end up having conversations that are much more democratic and much more equitable. So when we think about language knowledge, we often see this as something that stands alone. But it's important to consider that multilingual practices views all children's languages as resources and knowledge. There's something positive that they bring with them to the classroom. For some children, language knowledge means speaking and understanding, and for others, they may not use language often, but they can understand it. By working on language transmission and language maintenance, a shift away from losing that minoritized language, that home language, is possible. We know that language development supports the development of cultural identities and feelings of belonging, particularly among newcomer and multilingual children. There are instances where many educators don't speak the first language of the child. However, investing in the educator's skill set to promote the first language of the child and recognizing and celebrating the child's identity as a bilingual or multilingual can be important assets. We have learned through our work with communities and with families that just by using simple curricular themes like food or emotions, including songs and stories from various cultures and languages, and teaching children simple phrases like, I speak French, I am bilingual, and I can say hello in my language. It sounds like this, bonjour, is so powerful. It allows them to embrace that identity of being bilingual rather than feeling like they're neither one nor the other in their context. This is important because within ethnocultural communities, we see tensions between parents and young children as they grow up when they don't have that shared language. Many first or second generation children, once they have families of their own, wish they had spoken the language of their parents. These simple but powerful efforts can go a long way in helping children as young as 2 or 3 years old to start building that confidence in their identity as a bilingual or multilingual member of society and feel that sense of well-being. So how do we start? I think that's one of the pieces that's important to remember. We can remember that you are already doing really important work in your workplace, and that there are surely different activities that already are bringing the multicultural and intercultural aspects. In thinking about how to start or how to grow it, you can consider mapping activities in your program. So thinking about, well, what activities, including crafts, imaginary play, take place in your program? And here we've kind of illustrated a possible map. So thinking about your classroom theme, what music is being used, how is snack time organized, imaginary play, nap, story time, craft and sensory play, and also outdoor play. How do all these activities support belonging and inclusion for all children in the classroom? What languages are being incorporated into these activities? You have an important role to play in ensuring that culturally responsive care is multilingual and intercultural and is embedded in all these activities in your classroom. Each of us have different lived experiences, we have different language knowledge, and we have different traditions that we bring with us. We can work together to weave culturally responsive care throughout our early learning and childcare setting. Rather than feeling overwhelmed, we can start small. In working with partners, one strategy that we've used was to start with a small action. We use this really as a way to help the partner identify strategies to initiate the action and then build momentum on that. You might think about an area that is one of your favorites. Perhaps you love bringing music into the classroom, you love storytelling, or you love outdoor play. Choose one of these and think about how you could weave in a more multilingual and intercultural approach within that area. Try it out and then bring it back and consider again and talk to your colleagues and imagine how you can grow that into different activities within the classroom. So when we think about finding a place to start, I really think about the importance of considering the map of activities that you've created. Where are you already applying culturally responsive care? Where can you expand on what you're already doing? What are gaps? Perhaps there's areas where we do a lot of intercultural toys in the imaginary play, but we haven't really thought about it too much in terms of our storytelling or in terms of our classroom themes. Perhaps those are areas where you can bring that knowledge that you've developed in your imaginary play area and expand it. Think about who you can work with. Who are folks within your classroom setting that may be able to bring different perspectives, share parts of their culture and their languages with you? And what can you bring to the table and share that as well? Most of us are already doing really important culturally responsive work with the children and families that we work with. We'll encourage you to continue to reflect on some activities and think through these pieces as you're thinking through the next parts of this presentation. So in the next slides, we will share some culturally responsive practices that we've developed and implemented, and also that have been shared with us by our partners. Let's remember that there is no recipe. There are many ways to weave culturally responsive practices into the day-to-day lives of children and families in the early learning and childcare context. We hope that you will use these to improvise your own practices that suit the children and families that you work with, your role and your setting. We will begin with activities and strategies to include children's home language in early learning and childcare. We call these multilingual practices. Then we'll present ideas for weaving in intercultural practices and further enhance, as a whole, the culturally responsive practices in our workplace. Multilingualism refers to the presence of more than one language, whether it is in society, our community, or within ourselves. Multilingual practices aims to create a welcoming environment for languages and cultures. Indeed, a language can be seen as a pathway to culture, rather than seeing language as a barrier. Rather than thinking, I can't learn all the languages children speak in my workplace, or I'm no good at learning languages, or this is an English workplace and there really isn't room for my own language. We can reframe. We can think about it differently. We can see our languages as a strength. We can see languages as a way to build relationships. We don't need to become fluent in all languages, but we can learn to say hello in a few more languages, especially those that are used by the children and families that we serve. And by including our languages and expressing curiosity about the languages of others, we really do create these welcoming spaces where children can build a strong sense of belonging. So in the next slides, the following practices don't aim to teach additional languages, but really aim to provide that welcoming space for all languages. So by including multilingual practices, we're on the path to culturally responsive care. So one practice is incorporating multilingual hellos. So multilingual hellos is a great starting point for integrating multilingual practices. The goal in these activities is to gather different ways of saying hello in the languages that are known in the classroom. To do this, we've reached out to parents, fellow coworkers, and even asked the children themselves. It's been really interesting to explore how different people say hello. Sometimes they say hello across multiple languages. Sometimes we see a shared way of saying hello, which exist across different language groups. And that's a really interesting perspective to be able to bring back and notice in how we are similar in some ways and how we are different in others. You can also explore information available online. Through a multilingual hello activity, you're welcoming the child's language into the classroom at the start of each day. So from the get-go, the child sees that their language and their way of communicating is valued. It also opens up children to other languages and customs. In our work, we've developed a multilingual hello poster that stays up in the cubby area. It serves as a visual reminder to us as the adults and also cues us to think about, how am I going to say hello today? We've also incorporated multilingual hellos into our circle time routine, and we've invited children to say hello in their language, but also to explore saying hello in a different language. Many early learning and childcare classrooms incorporate visual supports to communicate keywords with children. We know that these multimodal cues, such as seeing and hearing the words around them, can help all children find their way in the classroom. We can support multilingual children by incorporating keywords from their home language. These can be added to the visual supports that are already available throughout the classroom or developed into a child-specific communication board. Asking the parents for some of the words used at home helps to show an interest and support for the home language. You can take the words they propose, write them down, either in the language itself or using a transcription or a phonetic way of spelling it so that you know how to pronounce it. Because you may not be able to speak all the languages represented in the classroom, but you can learn a few of these words with these visual supports. For example, words for water, food, sleep, cold, or hot, to support the children and create a welcoming space. Another practice that we can bring into the classroom to support multilingualism is telling stories in multiple languages. Story time and storytelling are common in our early learning and childcare contexts. These are times for children to listen and learn about the world around them and explore imaginary spaces. Storytelling and book reading are also wonderful ways to learn new words, new concepts, and to learn how books work. Incorporating multilingual books and stories into the classroom helps further build multilingual practices. We can incorporate stories by welcoming parent volunteers. We can also use resources available to us. By hearing stories in different languages, all children have the opportunity to expand their knowledge. By hearing a story in their home language, multilingual children have the opportunity to see their language and culture represented and celebrated. One resource that we've really appreciated in our team is Storybooks Canada. Storybooks Canada is a free online educational resource that was developed in Canada, and it aims to promote literacy and language learning in homes, schools, and communities. It's part of Global Storybooks, a larger project, and makes stories from the African storybooks available with text and audio in English, French, and the most widely spoken immigrant and refugee languages of Canada. If we explore or look at the website, you'll see there's some information about the resource, how to use the website, and even some tools for teachers. There's 40 stories, and the stories are all organized by level of complexity, from level 1, meaning quite simple, all the way up to level 4 and 5, which are longer paragraphs, more complex sentences included in the story. So if we explore counting animals as a story, you'll see the pictures are illustrated on the side. We have information about the authors. Each story has an audio, so you can listen to it in English or French. But what's exciting about Storybooks Canada is you can also change the language. Here you can see the list of different languages. So we can change the language, for example, to Urdu. When we've changed the language to Urdu, you can see that the text has changed, so the script is different. And if we listen to the audio, we can also listen to the audio in the language.
एक हाथी पानी पीने जा रहा है.
So that is that first page, which in English is one elephant is going to drink water. We can continue to turn the pages and listen to each page being read in English, in our language of choice, which here was Urdu. Can also see it in French. The last thing I want to point out is that you can download these stories. So you can create a regular PDF in one language. You can have it bilingual, so Urdu, English, to share back with families. And you can also have a booklet that has no text, so it's a wordless booklet to share back with families as well. With that little demonstration of how Storybooks Canada works, take a moment to go and explore the website yourself. Choose a story, such as feelings. Read it in your own language and listen to it in a language that you don't know. How might you use this resource in your program? Let's take a moment to pause and reflect. Think about and list some of the languages that are spoken in your classroom by your staff and the families. How do you currently promote multilingual practices in your classroom? What are some areas that you feel you're doing quite well or have begun to work on? What are some areas that you could explore and move into? It would be great for you to bring the ideas and some concrete examples of your own practice to our final live module, which will take place later in 2025. We'd love to hear from you about what's working, questions you have, and some strategies that you've tried out that really work.
Interculturalism is when our social structures and everyday interactions are defined by justice, mutuality, respect, equality, understanding, and celebration. It also means that there are mutually reciprocal relationships among and between cultures and people from different cultural groups that interact with one another, learn and grow together, build relationships, and become transformed, shaped, and molded from each other's experiences. The focus is on relationship building, not survival, and building deeper connections and respecting and learning from one another. An example of this is as follows. Two people are traveling on a local bus together. One is munching on a sandwich that smells of chives, herb, and garlic. The other person sitting next to them can smell the sandwich and actually likes the smell of it. At some point, the other person asks, "What kind of sandwich are you eating? It smells really good." Interculturalism is when the two people start talking and realize they have so much in common and exchange recipes of their favorite foods. And at some point, the person who was curious about the sandwich recreates that sandwich at home for their own family to enjoy and talks about how they met someone on the bus who gave them the recipe and explained how it was made and the rich personal history they have related to that food. There are many ways of practicing interculturalism. For example, asking families what home languages they speak and learning some key vocabulary and common words. It is important to remember that culture and language are intertwined and deeply connected. By including children's languages in the classroom, you are putting in place intercultural practices. In addition, it initiates conversations with parents about their culture and shows openness and curiosity to learn. A great place to start with intercultural practices is considering the weekly or monthly themes that we put place in our early learning and childcare context. When planning a theme, think about choosing one that can build a bridge between the home and the early learning and childcare. The ocean may be a great theme to explore new vocabulary, link with great books, and explore in imaginary play. However, this theme may be very abstract to many children in the Alberta context. Children may have few experiences with the ocean and the related language at home, and thus cannot bring their world knowledge and lived experiences to the classroom. In contrast, themes such as food, seasons, celebrations, or sports have the opportunity to build knowledge from home to the classroom and vice versa. These provide opportunities to integrate experiences from the home and community, to learn about common practices, and to learn about practices more unique to certain children. An important suggestion from our partners at Intercultural Family Center, ICFC, was to not just have intercultural practices as part of the environment that hangs on the wall, but to have children interact with differences and celebrate it and learn from each other. Similarly to themes, consider the imaginary play themes and materials and toys that are included in the classroom. Consider how play can be adapted to reflect the interests and experiences of children in the classroom. This consideration is important to help children see their home culture reflected in the classroom environment. They can be experts and guide play, such as how to put on a sari, how to braid hair, how to prepare pretend food, or partake in a tea ceremony. Music and dance are also great ways to expand and include intercultural practices. You might find parents volunteers that would be happy to share a favorite song or dance from their culture. They can share it by coming to the classroom space or by sharing a video. Crafts can be a way to discover and share cultural practices. We can explore shared crafts, talk about their role and their importance. You might consider how to connect to children's culture through craft activities in the classroom. Our crafts are informed by our culture. How and why we embroider, weave, and create mosaics. They may also be inspired by a cultural event or celebration. This is another area where you can reach out to and connect with parents to ask about the practices that they may want to share. Exploring intercultural practices through food is important. We hear stories of children feeling shy or ashamed of food that is different because of their classmates' reactions to it. By welcoming and talking about food and even encouraging children to try new food from each other's cultures, we can foster an environment that is open and curious. Food as a theme is a wonderful way to come together and start conversations. When we look around the world, there are many foods that we share, but we prepare them in ways that are unique to our own culture. Sharing pictures, including the names of these dishes, including recipes in the classrooms, for example, making dumplings of bread with Play-Doh, show and tell noodles are ways to incorporate food into your program. Parents and families from ethnocultural communities are great resources to tap on for identifying and providing ideas to promote multilingual and intercultural practices. In our project, Parent Manifesto, which will be discussed in detail in the next module, where we had families list some of the ways to engage and be involved in children's learning and development. Also, look around your existing networks and connections in the community. There may be leaders or resources that you can tap on. These include community leaders, trusted intermediaries like cultural brokers that share the language or culture of the communities they serve and work as liaisons and connectors between the social systems and the communities. In addition, there are educators within your program or outside that share cultural or linguistic abilities with many of the families. And lastly, your own lived experiences is a great way to leverage cultural wealth. However, we have to remember to not stereotype, as we discussed in Module 1. Culture is manifested in both visible and invisible ways. Even though someone might share similar culture to you and may have similarities, they might be quite different based on their own lived experiences. This concludes the second module. In today's module, we explored culturally responsive childcare and the importance of recognizing and encouraging children's home languages and home cultures. We also discussed ways to promote and celebrate the strengths the family bring to early learning and childcare through a concept called cultural wealth. Lastly, we shared some ideas and strategies from our own practice and work to nurture positive, trusting connections with families and children and create a culturally responsive early learning program. Thank you for joining us. We hope you'll complete Module 3. And if you're able to, attend the live sessions planned in February or March of 2025 to discuss with your colleagues what you have learned and how you have put these ideas into practice. If you have any questions or any suggestions, please reach out to our email address below. Thank you.